Hey, Sean. Over the past couple weeks, some of my favorite creators have posted their favorite things, best advice, 10 habits that they wish they had had, some great videos, and it inspired me to think, what would my best advice be? I turned 40 last year, and in my 40 years of life, what are the things I've learned, like my best advice? And so I did my best and I came up with a list of 9 things that have changed my life for the better that I've learned the hard way. And so I'm going to share these with you also as a reminder to myself of what these things are. But if you're somebody who's looking for this kind of advice, then I hope this video is useful to you. Each of these things, I tried to make them very specific, knowing that they have ripple effects and can cascade down into other parts of your life. I'm not gonna fill in all those blanks for every one of these. I have a problem being concise as it is already. So we're just gonna do our best here, and hopefully some of these things are obvious with how they can be of benefit to you. Number 1, drink more water. This is a lesson that I learned the hard way twice. First, I have anxiety. I've had anxiety issues since my earliest episode I can remember is when I was in 4th grade. I was on a Boy Scout camping trip and I had an anxiety attack where I didn't know what was going on. I just couldn't eat and I felt sick and I just wanted to lay down, and it was bad. And then sort of all of my traveling throughout my life and throughout high school, sort of hit or miss. I would just either have a really bad anxiety attack or not. It was really hard for me to nail down what was bothering me. And then same thing with school dances in high school and parties and things like that. Anxiety became a big part of who I am. And my symptoms, my appetite disappears. And I just don't want to eat. And it turns out that if you just don't eat, it gets worse. And in my 30s, my late 30s, I realized with my therapist that my symptoms are exactly the same symptoms as dehydration. And because of that, I don't know always what starts an episode. It could be something I'm anxious about. It could be that I'm dehydrated. And if it is just that I'm dehydrated, it doesn't matter, because once I feel these symptoms, my brain kicks in and it's like, oh, hey, I got it from here. We'll make sure it's anxiety. And far too late, I realized that drinking water helps. And this isn't a substitute for other mental health care you may be doing. I see a therapist. I've seen therapists my entire life, and I recommend it highly. But drinking water isn't well, if you drink water, then you don't need any of the other stuff, but it's not gonna hurt. And for me in particular, it really, really helped. And then I had a kidney stone after I turned 40. In October, I had a kidney stone, and I was talking to the doctor afterwards of what are the foods I should avoid? Can I not have a good salty burger ever again? And the guy's like, just drink more water. You get kidney stones because you don't drink enough water. I'm like, but can I eat a big... He's like, yeah, just make sure you drink more water when you do. So So drink more water. Number 2, learn to love photos of yourself. This one seems like it could be a little conceited or something, but it's really not, because at the root of loving photos of yourself is just loving yourself. And any unique things about your appearance that you may think are flaws, you gotta learn to love those things. And you definitely know people, and you may be somebody yourself like this, who said, oh, I don't like pictures of myself, or oh, I'll break the camera, don't take my picture. I saw this in my grandmother. My grandmother, my maternal grandmother, did not like photos of herself. And because of that, I barely have any. And there's one that I have that's very special to me I was driving her somewhere. I don't even remember when this was, but she needed sunglasses. So she put on my camo sunglasses, and I thought she looked awesome. And so we took a picture together. And it's one of the only times where she took a photo with me. And it means so much to me, but I wish I had so many more. And the fact that people like that go on vacations, they traveled a bunch, and they went to the jungles of Jamaica, and they'd take pictures of the flowers and the waterfall. And 50 years later, I don't care about a picture of some flowers or a waterfall. I can search online and find a photo of a waterfall if I need one. But what I wish I had was a photo of her and my grandfather in front of that waterfall, in front of those plants, to see them there. And it's kind of weird now where if you go on a vacation, you may think that people will roll your eyes of like, oh, you're at the Grand Canyon, you take a selfie at the Grand Canyon, you take a selfie at the here, you take a selfie, you take a selfie, you take a selfie. Those are important and those mean things to other people. And it's easy for you to sit there and think like, well, that was my grandma. Like, no one cares about me and my little face. They do. They do. And you haven't yet met all the people who are going to love you, and you don't know what you're going to mean to other people. And these little things make such a difference because it shows not just where we've been, but you can see our emotions and our expressions in these places. And that matters. It's not just like, oh, it's cool that I knew my grandmother was in front of this waterfall, but I would have liked to have seen her face and how she felt. Was she excited? Was she in awe? These things come across in photos, and it's really important that we capture them in an earnest way. And those of us who do take a lot of selfies and have photos of ourselves taken, it can be easy to make goofy faces in every one of these photos. Where like you're with somebody, you're like, and I have a stack of photos that's seemingly unending of me making faces like this, as I'm sure you do too. But it's so important that we find the confidence in ourselves to take genuine photos of ourselves throughout our life in different places, because those photos will mean a lot to people. And it's also a great exercise for yourself to learn to love yourself and to be the type of person that can say, hey, I'm somebody who is worth having their photo taken. Because you probably wouldn't look at anyone else and be like, you know, you're so ugly and you don't matter, so it doesn't matter, get out of the picture. You wouldn't say that to someone else, so you really shouldn't say it to yourself. And if you would say that to someone else, then you need other things that we're not going to cover on this list today. Number 3, be eager to be wrong. This isn't about like being okay with being wrong. This is about looking for opportunities to be wrong. And this is something where in your own personal life, you're going to learn a lot more if you find opportunities to learn that you're wrong, because that's when we learn. If it was something we already sort of assumed, then we're not really learning it. When we're wrong, that's when true learning happens. This is important not only in our day-to-day life with how we adjust our attitudes, but also definitely in your career, in your craft. And where I notice this in particular is for me, when I'm on set with film stuff, I'm constantly learning new stuff. And someone will say something about lighting or mics, or like they're doing a technique a certain way that I don't do it. And I'll ask them why. And they'll say, oh, you know, I do this because this is what a microphone does. And it's tempting for all of us to save face and be like, yeah, I know that. But the problem is, if we didn't know that, we should say, oh, I didn't know that. That's cool. Because there's other people around. And if someone else didn't know that, but they think that everyone else did, then there can be shame associated with that. You might make someone feel dumb for not knowing something that you didn't know because you're acting too proud to admit that you didn't know it. And so it's a little thing, but admit to yourself, because you're gonna find more opportunities to learn interesting things, and you're gonna open doorways for other people to learn and to not feel bad about ignorance, because it's a big part of life, and approaching it in a healthy way can have huge impacts for what you do in your career and in your hobbies and in your crafts, and who you are as a person, and the kind of space you make for other people too. Number 4, push things too far with fashion. I think you can apply this easily to other places, like in your creativity or pushing yourself with what you can do with physical exercise. I don't know. There's other things here. But for me, pushing yourself a little bit with your fashion is one of the greatest things you can do for yourself and your confidence, because trying something that you don't think you can pull off, you will always learn that you can pull it off. I started wearing crooked hats. And if you're somebody who's sitting here commenting that my crooked hat looks dumb, like so many people do, A, I'm gonna delete the comment, but B, what does that do for you? What does that do for your life to elect to watch a YouTube video of somebody and find something to judge them about? Make some changes, because it can be difficult to try these things, but it's self-inflicted, this shame we feel. And so if there's like a jacket you think is awesome, but maybe it's too bold, it's too colorful, try it. If there's an awesome pair of shoes, I wore Converse my entire life for the most part, and I love Converse. I'm not saying Converse are bad shoes, but I didn't think I could wear like a cool pair of like Jordan high tops. but I can, and now I do, and I just had to one day start. I have this awesome pair of like gold Jordan high tops right now that I love, and I wear them when I want to feel awesome, and I do. But these things only happen if you try, and there are literally no consequences to pushing harder with fashion. Put on an awesome jacket and go to the grocery store. And you know what the worst thing that could possibly happen to you is? Nothing. You'll just feel cool. So push yourself with fashion, find one thing about your outfit to kind of push a little further, and you'll find confidence in yourself that you didn't know you had, and you'll look cooler too, and it'll have that ripple effect where other people will start to learn to try things too. And so whether you think you're too old or too out of shape or too something, put on something cool. Find something that looks cool on somebody else, you think, and make it look cool on you too, because odds are it will. You just gotta give it a chance. Number 5 is probably the hardest on this list and the most obnoxious, but it is one of the most powerful things that I've ever experienced, and that is this: use more positive language. I worked with a life coach probably 8 years ago, named Tim Dean. I think his website is still thecoachingdean.com. But Tim did this thing where when we were in our weekly sessions, he didn't let me speak negatively. He would stop me, and it annoyed me so bad for the first few weeks of, I would say something like, oh, I messed up this client project, and the client got mad. Like I made a huge mistake in the editing. And he'd be like, say that differently, use positive language. Like, I can't use, I made a mistake. I screwed up an edit, and the client got upset because of it. And he's like, no, find positive language. And it's so hard to do at first, and you might not think it matters, but if you can do it, you'll start to find that when your words change, your thinking changes too. And what I started to realize was he helped me, but instead of saying like, I messed up this thing of a client edit, I started to say like, I learned that there's a better way to do this kind of edit for a client. And you're right to roll your eyes a little bit and be like, is that really gonna make that much of a difference to talk like that? Yes, it does, because over time, the way that you're talking to yourself, you're not telling yourself I screwed up, you're telling yourself, hey, I figured out a new way to do this. I learned that I was wrong, and that's okay, because now I can grow from it without having to feel shame about being wrong. And these little things where when you approach things in your life that you've never tried before, if you approach them and be like, I'm probably not gonna be that good at this, or like, this probably isn't gonna be for me, then guess what? You're not gonna be that good at it, and it's probably not gonna be for you. But if you approach things with a good, healthy attitude and you are eager to try things, instead of being a gatekeeper or a hater, you can open yourself up to a world of fantastic things, but it starts with your language and how you talk to yourself, because you really can affect your attitude by just changing some of the words that you use. And it is difficult at first, and it is cringy at first, but you won't regret making a change like this if you can actually start to make a change with it. Number 6, say thank you big time. There is nothing that you create, nothing that you do that is not informed by people who have done it before you. And all the great artists and innovators and inventors build on things that already exist. And there's so many things that other people have built that come together to create these amazing things that we'd be fools to think that we did it on our own. And when you find an opportunity where you're feeling good, taking a moment to realize who participated in getting you there is important. And by reaching out, when you feel that gratitude, reaching out and giving a heartfelt thank you to someone to let them know how they made you feel is a huge thing for this world. And if we all had more gratitude, we would realize how much more connected we are, what an impact we're having on each other. The little comments that I get in the YouTube videos that are like, hey, liked this video, this helped me, whatever. I'm not asking for that comment, by the way. But those things mean the world to me, because it shows that my efforts have made some little impact. And there's things in your life, mentors you've had, family members, little things like my dad helped pick up our Christmas tree because I no longer have a pickup truck. And I didn't have a way to get rid of our Christmas tree this year, so my dad came over. That's a huge help, because otherwise it's a giant pain to get rid of a Christmas tree, because where we live, they don't pick up Christmas trees for us like they used to in the city. And so It's little things like that, but reach out and express these things. And I'm to the point where I worry that people are rolling their eyes when they get sincere thank you messages from me or letters, whatever it may be. But with these things, when you express that gratitude more, you'll open yourself up to being aware of how many people are contributing to your life in a positive way. But also, when you reach out with that gratitude, you're increasing the chances that those people that you're thanking will have an impact on other people's lives. They'll realize maybe something they did for you because it meant a lot to you is something they could do for other people. And the world gets better by just expressing a little bit of that gratitude. And so do that. I always, and I have to be obnoxious at this point for him, but my buddy Dane and I started working together on February 5th, 2018. I've told my Dane story before, but so often when I talk to Dane, I'm thanking him because he continues to give me opportunities, and we've become wonderful friends since. But over the years, he's given me so many opportunities and helps me so much with video production, and I'm only here because of the opportunities that he gave me, or at least I'm here way earlier than I ever would have been without him. And so I thank him, and I'm sorry if I thank him too much, but I deal with it, man. You've had an impact. And fun fact, on my very first set with him on February 5th, 2018, I had a red shirt on. I wore a bright red jersey because that's what I was wearing. And I get there and I'm the only person not wearing black. And I realized that I was wrong. Going back to number 3, be eager to be wrong. I was wearing a bright red shirt on a film set, and when lights are on, I sort of cast a slight red hue over everything. That's why everyone wears black on a film set. I didn't know that. I learned that. Now I wear black and gray on sets because that's what should be done. And I was wrong, and I learned that. And thank you, Dane, for teaching me that. And being open and honest enough throughout the years to teach me things and tell me when I'm wrong. And I hope that I've been an eager student, and I've made some of those things easier to share the news about, because it can be awkward to tell people what they're doing wrong, but it all helps. Number 7, this is my biggest piece of advice. If you're trying to tackle a passion project, if you have something you want to do, my biggest piece of advice is this. When you get started, ask someone for a favor. When you do this, you bring someone else in and you become accountable to them. And I think of the kid show that we're creating, where I wanted to do this, and there's so many projects that I've wanted to do over the years, but this one I really wanted to do. And so after thinking about it for a while, the first thing I did was I reached out to my favorite educator, and I asked her, like, hey, could I talk to you about this thing that I'm trying to create, this thing I'm thinking about? And she was generous with her time. And after a couple conversations, we partnered, and she's now, her name's Sarah, and she's the creative director and the brains behind our kids show, Our Little World. And by involving her, suddenly I'm accountable to her, where with any other project, it'd be easy to be like, yeah, I tried it. It's going to be too hard to do. But by getting her involved, I kind of have to now. She's taking her time to inform the show and design it. And so I've got to send the emails and make the phone calls to schedule these things. And then right now our whole crew volunteers because we have no money for this show. And it gets a lot easier to edit when I know that 12 people have volunteered a full day of their time to bring this show to life. And so by putting that hook in of someone has put in some effort and now I've got to show up because of them, it's a huge thing. And so whatever your project is that you want to get started, find a way to involve someone else, to collaborate in some way. And I'm not saying don't pay them, but it isn't like, oh, well, go on Fiverr and have somebody design a logo, because when you're paying for something fairly, after they've been paid, you don't feel that obligation anymore. There has to be some element of it being a favor for it to work, at least for me. So that's my advice. If you want to build a cool project, involve someone else and ask for a favor, because that's going to lock you into having to do it much more than if you don't. Coming down to the end here, number 8, wake up before you need to. I'm not going to walk through like wake up at 5 a.m. and read for 10 minutes and then eat of this and have your coffee at 9. No. All I'm saying is wake up before you need to. And if you've got an 8 o'clock meeting, don't roll out of bed at 7:50. Give yourself some time. I don't care what you do with that time, But the one thing I think you should do is take a moment to think about what you want to be that day. And I know for me, my kids usually wake up between like 6:30 and 7:15 every day. Somewhere in there, both my kids wake up. And being a 5-year-old and a 1-year-old, they don't wake up and just become independent all day. When they wake up, we are on call and parenting begins. And so if the first thing I do is roll out of bed and go right to my kids' rooms, I'm behind that whole day. Like I haven't got my feet underneath me. It doesn't stop until bedtime at night. And so the thing that I can do, if I can wake up at 6 and give myself 30 minutes to brush my teeth, splash some water on my face, but also just think like, hey, today I'm gonna be a really good dad. By taking a moment to adjust my trajectory on where I want to go for the day has such an impact on what I will do that day and how that day feels versus the days where I wake up and I am just chasing from the moment I get out of bed. So that's my advice. Wake up earlier than you need to. I don't care how much earlier, I don't care what you do with it, but give yourself a little bit of time to decide how you're gonna show up for whatever comes next. Number 9 is probably the most important and can have a bigger impact than any of the other ones. And it's this simple: audit your amusement. I heard this recently, I wish I could remember where, but it was just the question, are we amusing ourselves to death? And I look at my life and like, if I'm gonna wash the dishes for 10, 20 minutes, I'm always like, oh, let me put on my headphones. I'll listen to a podcast. What should I listen to? And I'm scrolling looking for something. Or I'm going to fold laundry. It's like, what should I watch for a few minutes? What should I watch for a little while? And I've put myself in a spot where so frequently I have to be entertained. I have to find something, and I'm bored if I'm not. And getting to a spot where we can be comfortable being bored is such a good place to be. I wish I could remember the quote, but it was like, all of man's problems stem from the inability to sit quietly in a room by oneself. If I can find the quote, I'll put it on the screen. Find that stillness and be comfortable with it because you're going to be happier. But when you do consume content, whatever it may be, whether you're reading the news or watching stuff or however you consume things, what you consume ends up defining you. If you're watching nerdy, weird science stuff, you're gonna do nerdy, weird science things. You're gonna talk about nerdy, weird science things. If you're reading goofy, creative science fiction, anime, whatever, then that's the kind of stuff that is going to become a part of your personality. If you're watching and reading everything political and reactions and takedowns and hit pieces and some of the awful things that exist on the internet and get reactions, then you're gonna be bitter and critical and reactive in life. That's just going to become a part of who you are because it's what you consume. And so take a moment to think about what you want to be consuming, because odds are you don't want to be a bitter, reactive person who's aware of every little thing that someone said that makes someone else angry. And having the control to say, I control what I think about has become very important to me. About a year ago, I stopped watching the news completely, and I had been watching and reading the news every single day. I would check it multiple times, and I was on Reddit and multiple news sites from both sides of the American political system, and I would watch Colbert and laugh about, you know, whatever's happening, and they'd make fun of political stuff. And after a while, I was like, man, every day there are politicians that are annoying me that I am thinking about. And I'm only thinking about them because I'm choosing to watch something that I know will bring that up. And after a while, I'm like, how much time of my day am I giving to some of these politicians that annoy me like crazy, that are bad people? How much time am I spending, even though I'm thinking about how bad they are? It's not like I'm starting to believe what they're talking about or anything, but I'm just spending a lot of time thinking about them. And I'm like, man, I would rather be thinking about anything else. I'd rather be working on the kids show. I'd rather be creating art or painting or making music or being with my kids if they're awake. Whatever these things are, how much of my time do I want to spend thinking about those people and those things? And we have the ability to choose how much we watch, what we watch, and if we watch at all. And so take a moment to audit it. And I'm not telling you don't read anything political. I'm not telling you don't watch stuff or stay off of scrolling endlessly on Facebook or whatever, but just choose ahead of time and say, hey, how much time, if you want to spend an hour surfing through Facebook, great. Tell yourself that and make time for it instead of finding out that, oh, I scrolled for an hour and I hate it. I scrolled for an hour again and I should have been doing anything else. That's the situation that a lot of us find ourselves in. And it just takes a moment to audit what you want to be doing, if you want to be watching, what you want to be watching, and how much of it you want to be watching. Because it all has an impact on who you are. And even if you think like, oh, I'm this kind of person, I just like being aware of that stuff, that's not how it works. After a very short time, that stuff becomes very much a part of you because you're going to be around other people. And when they say, hey, what's going on? You're going to say, oh, hey, did you hear about, and you're going to talk about something that you read about. Is that going to be something exciting and happy that you like about yourself? Is it going to be something that somebody said and like, oh, can you believe this? How upset are you about it? We get to choose the kind of emotions that we're going to have and the kind that we're going to share with other people in our conversations. And that is informed so much by what we're consuming. So audit what your amusement is because it's going to define you much more quickly than you may realize. That's all I got. This was a big one. If you made it this far, I sincerely appreciate it. If anything in here resonated with you, if there's advice that you have that you think I should know, please put it in the comments because I'm always eager to find new things that have made a difference for other people. And I'm always eager to try things myself and eager to be wrong about what I was doing before, including this list of advice. That's all I got. Have a great day or night or whatever, wherever. See you later. Bye.